Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. On this 21st day of February, going to be make some quick announcements here. Now, tonight, I'm going to do a 30-minute show, give or take a few minutes, and then 30 minutes past the hour, stay tuned for my interview with Freddie the Pizza Man out of Detroit here. Freddie has the best pizza in Detroit, according to Dave Portnoy, the founder of Barstool Sports. I want to ask him about, in this interview I did with him earlier, it was recorded. We talk about the Detroit Lions getting a lot of talk. The Pistons could be in the play for Victor Wembanyama. So stand by here. I'm going to take my break here at a minute 29. I'll be back in a minute 29 here on Sports Scope, and I will explain everything. Or minute 19, excuse me. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why Sports Scope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is Sports Scope, again spelled the same way, or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, at gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty, then I'm back here live on all links. Now, again, check the program out at Stay On, folks. 30 minutes past the hour. Got about a 27-minute interview with Freddie the Pizza Man. We get into the Lions. We get into the Pistons, especially the Lions. And but yeah. So Nate Millen, like I said, this show's going to be 30 minutes, but hang around. I'll get my Freddie the Pizza Man interview in. You all will be able to get to see that as well. Good starting point there, Carlos. The Atlanta Hawks fired Nate McMillan. Now, McMillan, team's about 500 right now. They're a 6 seed to be exact. Let me see if I can find this. Okay. Great. Check this out. 29-30, they're one game below 500. They're technically an 8 seed. With Devontae Murray there, with Trae Young, yes, they have underachieved. Without a doubt, he's a guy, got off to a really good start here. I want to say he was the interim coach back in 2020, Carlos. Team did really well. Remember, they went a few rounds in the playoffs, if you guys recall. Going with Philadelphia. Remember, I want to say they beat the Knicks that year, Carlos. And they look promising. But now the team is one game below 500. They're sitting there at an 8 seed. Remember last year they made the big move here. And got Murray, Javonte Murray. I'm probably butchering his name. Shooting guard for the San Antonio Spurs to play with Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter, and, of course, John Collins. Clint Capella, really good defensive guy on the inside. Got some shooters. Bogdanovich. It's really unfortunate for the Atlanta Hawks. But, I always saw McMillan as being a disciplinarian. But according to Adrian Wojciechowski, that the Hawks are starting a new search for a head coach. They're looking for player development, accountability, and getting Hawks offense, defense in the top 10 is what he is reporting. So apparently none of that was happening under McMillan. Got a good foundation, got a really good town there. Atlanta's a pretty good basketball town there. It's a great town in general. Vibrant. Guys, I'm a medical carrier. I've been to Atlanta quite a few times. Been there quite a few times, and I'll tell you this: it's a great place to live. It's a great place to live. When you read all this stuff, and he have already mentioned some potential candidates, but I'm gonna tell you right now, what's trending right now on Twitter and everywhere else is Ime Udoka. If you look at what the Celtics look like before when Brad Stevens left, this team was an underachieving. Think about it. They were pretty close to this Atlanta team. They were pretty close to this Atlanta team record-wise, that Boston Celtic team. And Ime Udoka, I know he's got his baggage. He's been suspended for a year for all the affair and all that stuff. But he turned that Celtic team around just like that. Easier said than done. Now, the talent's in hand for Atlanta. The talent's there. When you got a guy like Trae Young, I mean, that is Stephon. That's Steph Curry. That's Steph Curry level talent, And and let me see what else Woj said. He mentioned some other names here that would probably ring a bell with you all. He mentioned Quinn Snyder. Quinn Snyder left Utah. Quinn Snyder had a problem with Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, a guy that's very ball-centric, didn't want to share the ball. Good coach, though. Quinn Snyder, former Utah Jazz coach. He also mentioned Charles Lee, Bucks assistant, Golden State, Kenny Atkinson. Atkinson's about 55. He's a little older coach. Did really well with Golden State last year. Now, I noticed he was a coach there with the Nets and resigned. That was during their transition between players and when they end up moving off of their core players, and then they tried the what do you want to say? the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving experiment. So these guys are good candidates. I would bring in Ime first and talk to him and see if I can figure out something. I do believe in second chances, and especially if you're good at what you do. And he is really good at what he does, at being a head coach. It's something I would think about. I'm not sure 100% I would go there, but then my second choice would be a guy like a Quinn Snyder, per se, for the Utah Jazz. It's one thing. It's one thing when the players aren't there. It's another thing when you have a talent like a Trae Young. It's going to be an attractive job. Probably go with the Golden State. I mean, one of these three guys would be, but I like how he said player development and accountability. That's something that the NBA, it's hard to get that of players to do that in the NBA. It's hard to hold players accountable that are millionaires. It's what we've been talking about the last few days when Charles Barkley said a holdout and basically a makeover is needed, is warranted for this league. But again, that story just broke this afternoon. Nate McMillan getting fired with the Atlanta Hawks here, firing him over the All-Star break. It's funny. I want to say that's when he took over back 3 years ago with the Atlanta Hawks here. So Carlos says, same thing happened in Indiana. This is a better move for Nate than Atlanta. He says you don't develop players in the NBA. That's what the G League is for. I'm just saying what Wojciechowski is saying for the Atlanta Hawks. That's what he's saying for the Atlanta Hawks. He said they're looking for player development, accountability, and getting the Hawks offense and defense in the top 10. Other words, you want to emulate another Steve Kerr. Well, maybe try Kenny Atkinson, somebody like that. You need somebody to hold these guys accountable as much as you possibly can with all the power that the NBA players have at this point, you know. But anywho, that's an interesting storyline. Okay, now other news. A lot of buzz here in the last few hours about Trayvon Diggs. Now that's the wide receiver there for Buffalo, and you know Diggs, his brother Stephon Diggs, his brother Trayvon, who plays for the Dallas Cowboys, tweeted out. He might have probably put it on his Instagram about his put like a cryptic message with him in a Dallas uniform with the number 14 there, which that's just his number there for the Buffalo Bills. Put him in a Dallas uniform. Now, remember, he was really frustrated seeing going at it with Josh Allen on the sideline. They extended him. I want to say as soon as they traded for him a few years ago. Remember, he was traded for after the 2020 season from the Minnesota Vikings. You know, he gets traded from the Vikings. He wants out of Minnesota when Minnesota's winning a game. He's complaining about getting the ball when the Vikings are winning against the Saints, if you guys recall. And that was a sideline moment there. The rest is history. Minnesota trades him. Then they get the draft pick that they get from Buffalo. They draft Justin Jefferson. Okay? They draft Justin Jefferson. He goes on, has an all-world couple of seasons there with Josh Allen. Now things are starting to go south. The team is not playing well with Stephon Diggs. He's 29 years old, and guys, they are paying him a ton of money. And like I said before, it's really hard to get people to play Buffalo. Buffalo's like Green Bay, man. I mean, it's really hard to get people to. You have to overpay. They overpaid for Von Miller, you know. Now he ended up getting hurt last year, but his cap hit is unbelievable. You know, next year they're going to be paying him. They can't cut him either, by the way. His cap hit in September will be $20 million. Now, Mike Florio says they can't even trade this guy. They can't even trade Stephon Diggs until after June 1st because he's a $34 million cap hit. If you trade him, that's crazy. If you trade him, guys, on before June 1st. In other words, you can't maybe, and I don't know the bylaws. I did a lot of research this afternoon. I can't find the bylaws on the NFL. Can you trade a guy in principle? On draft, they say we got the draft coming up at the end of April, like we do every year. Can you trade a Stephon Diggs in principle on draft day and get that team's first round pick, and then it not go into effect until after that June 1st deadline? I don't know. I can't find that out. But it sounds, and of course, what I'm reading from Mike Florio is it sounds like that they're stuck with him. You know, before June 1st, it would trigger a cap charge, $34.7 million. The other problem is the Bills don't really have any high-end receivers. I'm not worried about the receivers. I'm worried about just getting rid of this guy, you know. But as I said before, and I'll say it again, but Bill Belichick says this all the time too. He says it's better to do away with the player a year early than a year late. It's better to do what. Now he's 29. He's still probably got 2 or 3 years. They got this guy assigned till he's 34 years old. 2020. I mean, they just a terrible contract there out of Buffalo. No big deal if you've won the Super Bowl. Very big deal if you're coming up just short like that, getting blown out at home in Cincinnati. It's what I said about A.J. Brown, and I know that it looks like that I asked Jamie Paggs, Philly Sports Guy, about this a few weeks ago. A.J. Brown, very good player, comes out of Nashville here. a big part of what Jalen Hurts, the success he had in that team. I get all that, but there was some you can see on film him complaining about not getting the ball in a blowout, 2 blowout games. In a blowout game there against the Giants, you could see him knowing that his quarterback's got a bad shoulder problem there. 3 catches, 34 yards, but they're winning like 34-7, and he's still complaining. Very Stefon Diggs like. Very Stefon, and I made the suggestion. That maybe play him next year because he's a big fair cap hit next year. AJ Brown, and then trade him, and he's really in his prime before that big cap money hits in. That's the thing about these receivers is as a general manager of a team, or rather be a coach or a general manager, you kind of get a feel for these guys. You kind of get a feel for where something may go. You start to see their personality, and you know this is a good player. But like my dad would say, a little bit of this person go a long way. Same thing with Randy Moss. You could start to see signs of Moss deteriorating character-wise with the New England Patriots weeks before it. And Belichick could see this. He could sense it. So you start to see him being less and less part of the offense, and then, boom, he's traded before the trade deadline. Obviously, you can't do it that quick in most cases. That's just an example. They had a guy, Richard Seymour. I could see that wasn't and this is a different position. Same principle, though. Richard Seymour, I can see he's making comments that are very unpatriot-like, former defensive end for the Patriots. And I was telling my dad, I'm thinking, he really don't sound like a Patriot with that attitude. He just don't seem like a guy to fit this culture. And it was an interview towards the end of the game one time. And that next year, sure enough, just before they started week 1, he was traded for a second-round pick to the Raiders. He was traded. And you never really heard from the guy again. And that's the same thing with these receivers. People, you got to listen to me here. Now, when you say, well, what about they're all like that? Well, not necessarily. Larry Fitzgerald, never heard the thing. Some of them are worse than others. They're worse than others. But you want to get ahead of that, and you don't pay these players often. If you do play a player like that, he's good. You have a short window. You think you got about 2 years. Say you sign a player to a 5-year deal. You got about a 2-year window there. And then usually, for reading over a lot of these contracts, what I can get, folks, it blossoms about year 3. And usually, if you're starting to sense that there's some diva coming out, go ahead and trade them. There's a sucker born every day. There's a sucker in the NFL born every day. Speaking of suckers here, Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones, he's talking about, he likes C.J. Stroud. I'm going to bring on Alan Perez, big Dallas fan, on tomorrow. Another podcaster here. I kind of feel like Joe Rogan here lately, except I got a suit, right? So keep in mind, I'm going to ask him about Jerry Jones talking about C.J. Stroud. But, there's a sucker born every day, a Dallas or somebody like that, a Washington Commander team, a Jets team, sucker born that will take the Raiders, take a Devontae Adams and all that contract, and they will give you high draft picks for diva-like receivers or just simple number 1 receivers. They'll give you they'll give you high draft picks for number 1 coming into their prime. And then you take that and go draft somebody else. Pittsburgh never really they never really hang on to a high dollar receiver, other than maybe a Hines Ward, but he's different. He blocks. He was a really good guys like Plexico. They let Plexico go, they let him go. Now he went on to win a Super Bowl with the Giants before shooting himself in the leg. Literally figuratively a lot of times and literally later on in his career. It's something that you just kind of got, as an organization, whether you're a coach or you got to have your hand on the pulse for this. On the flip side, Stefon Diggs did an interesting interview with he said something that I can appreciate and can be a blessing in disguise for the Bills. Okay, listen to what he said. Remember, they got humiliated by Cincinnati. That was one of the worst games for a home divisional opponent that was favored to go to the Super Bowl that I've ever seen. That was that good coming in. That what was it, 27-11 or 10 or something like that. I've never seen a team get blown out of home like that. Not unless they've got their quarterback got knocked out early. But listen to Stefon Diggs. This was around the time of the Super Bowl on the Dan Patrick Show.
Up to it, culmination. It's and for me, it was up to this point. Like, we've seen quarterback and receivers as far as like tandems and guys who play at a high level, and every quarterback has their guy. You know, in those moments, like you are the guy. And up to this point, I've been the guy for my team and for my quarterback. So in those moments, of course, I want the ball. You know what I'm saying? I'm never will apologize for that. I show you a good loser. I show you a loser. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, like in that moment, it was fourth and whatever. Of course, I was one-on-one on the backside, and I wanted to put us in a position to win. So, I never apologize for passing, because we forget about this game, I guess. Like, and some people.
He was talking about he had a blow up with Josh Allen on the sideline. Now, he made the comment about being a loser and not being okay with losing. Now, I'm with Stefon there. I'm with him there. And now, mind you, his brother puts out this stuff about Dallas Cowboys, him in a uniform. But the truth be told, he's probably, and he has a beef here, ticked off that Buffalo does nothing after that embarrassing loss. They do nothing coaching-wise. The organization does nothing about the consistency or lack thereof it on a running game. They do nothing. If you don't make noise, if you don't pitch a bleep, right, on the sideline, that says you're okay with losing. That says you're okay with working your rear end off. You're the number one seed coming. You're their odds-on favorite most of the year to get to the Super Bowl, and that was my pick too. It was Buffalo 49ers. That was my Super Bowl, and most people said they were the odds-on favorite throughout. During the regular season, they beat the champions. They beat Kansas City 24-20. He later on says in that interview, we're doing one way of winning first 9 weeks, and then we get away from it towards the end. What he's talking about, now he didn't say this, but I watched the games. They got away from running the ball. And I don't know if it's Allen calling audibles. I doubt it. But it may be. It may be Allen calling the audibles. He going off on Allen. A lack of offensive identity by running the ball, no zone blocking running. They're a lot like Dallas. And he talks about that. Dallas, especially the year before last, they can't figure out a way to run the ball early, they'll give up on it. And Dak is throwing 35, 40 plus times a game. That equals a loss. This guy's a much more talented quarterback than Dak Prescott. His cap hit goes way up, Josh Allen's. And they do nothing with McDermott. Nothing is done with McDermott. Is the ownership, are they simply looking at it from a perspective of, well, we like the way he handled the DeMar Hamlin situation. We've been in the playoffs the last few years. We're going to let it ride like that. No, that is not the way to look at it. Look at it in the fact, Sid, that we're very close. We're very close, and we need that coach to put us over the top. Carlos says, Dorsey's throwing clipboards after having too many passing plays. He's throwing clipboards after they lost to Miami early in the season. The problem was they were too successful early where they thought they could simply hang on and play that way. and it carried them all the way to the Super Bowl. I mean, they lost 27-10 at home to Cincinnati, a Cincinnati team that had to play at home against a very rough Baltimore team, playing them back-to-back games with 3 offensive linemen out, and totally humiliated Buffalo. And it is one of the most embarrassing losses in the history of the organization. Mr. Wilson is turning over in his grave about that. That is a horrible loss. And somebody should be flipping over tables and chairs and say, we didn't come here for this. They've got 3 offensive linemen out, and we're getting beat 17 points at home. Where's your dignity? Now, Matt Ryan, he's okay with that. Matt Ryan blows 28-3 leads all the time. He is okay with losing, not just the Super Bowl. You could see his body language in the games. He's okay with that. Certain guys, Tom Brady's going to go crazy losing like that, you know? And I'll give Diggs that. I'll give him credit. If you're getting beat 27-10, yeah, I'm going crazy on the sideline. So we didn't come here to get embarrassed. I remember first Super Bowl for Ben Roethlisberger a few years ago. Well, for years ago, 2005, 2006, right? And he's a second-year player. Jerome Bettis is in the Super Bowl. Finally gets there. The bus finally gets there. And Seattle, and they got a league. They're coming into the second half. NFL Films picks this up. And the league, it's a small league, but they have a league in the game. And Seattle feels like they're hanging around. And you can hear Bill Cowher, the coach there at the time, say, hey, man, let's take care of the football. Let's run the ball here. Let's take care of it. And this 24-year-old second-year player says, he looks at him right in the eye. He said, I didn't come here to lose. I didn't come here. And it wasn't – he says that to Bill Cowher. And I remember it wasn't long after that they set up that trick play. There was a trick play. It was a receiver, and I can't remember his name. It wasn't Ward, but it was one of their players. It was one of the receivers used to play quarterback. He throws a deep pass, and I want to say he either hits I think he does hit Hines Ward deep down the field, and they go on and score. It's a big play. They blew the game open, go on and win the Super Bowl that year. A lot of bad calls there. A lot of bad calls. Yeah, and it may have been Hines Ward. It may have been Hines Ward, Carlos. But, you know, the fact that they didn't replace McDermott and get an offensive-minded head coach in Buffalo, I can see Diggs' beef there. I can see. And it's good that he's making noise about it because you want fans to start talking about it on podcasts like mine. I'm not a fan, but you want people to start talking about it to realize we're not okay with doing this. We need some type of identity with our offense to start to run the ball because our window's going to close. He's 29 years old. Josh Allen is coming into his own. His cap hit's going to get to be more and more and more. And the Bills, it's going to be harder for them to hold star players. Could they still win next year? Yeah, possibly. But I doubt it with McDermott there. I doubt it. And it's very fortunate. When I was researching for this program today, someone was holding up a Bills sign says something. Bills stand for something always. Something always losing Super Bowls. You know, and it was really funny. It was really funny. The BILLS. Boy, we love losing Super Bowls or something like that. And, you know, hey, there's some truth there. There's some truth there. But, okay, guys, we got another part of the program going to come on. My interview with Freddie the Pittsman out of Detroit. So it'll be on here in about 30 seconds. I want to thank you all for watching the program. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have Alan Perez. Going to get his thoughts on some Dallas Cowboy questions, get a little bit of his background in, and whatever breaks news Going to also talk a little bit about those college football rule changes and everything. Parlo says he wants people to stop talking about Buffalo. Hey, if you're in the Super Bowl bubble, I'm going to talk about you. Have a good one, everybody.